Howdy, folks. I wanted to put what I've learned out there just in case anybody else gets the idea and I can potentially save them time and effort trying to figure out what I was trying to figure out, which is to make a Hexcrawl in Talespire. So if you want to do a Hexcrawl in Talespire, well, I did too. And I wanted to emulate that feeling of exploration in games like Skyrim or Breath of the Wild, but in a tabletop game, and enter hex crawls as a way to gamify those types of exploration. Thank you to Dottie from the Mystic Arts for sharing a great hex crawl system and giving great tutorials on that. But that was for 2D and in person, and I really wanted to bring it to Talespire to try it out, which is a 3D game. So I got to work on thinking how I could transfer it over. My first idea was to duplicate hexes in Talespire since they tessellate well, and hexes for a hex crawl. So of course I should use hexes, and not to mention they look good. This one to the left is kind of a rough template of what I was trying to build, and on the right here is a hex I've taken from somebody who made something much more beautiful than me, Princess Popcorn over on Tales Bazaar, and I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description for that. My first idea was to make a hex and tessellate it, something like this over here, and it looked great. It was going to work wonders. However, there's one issue, and that's I didn't want to show my players the entire map all at the same time. I wanted them to discover it as they moved about. So I figured, hey, why not put the hide volumes on them and see what we could do. But as you can see here, when you put a hide volume on a hex, it's not exactly perfect. It cuts into the edges of this one, and you can see there's like little floating bits, and you can kind of try and tweak it and add more or less to try and perfectly cut in there, but it's an imperfect idea. And when you try and do a big group, you get this problem where it kind of cuts through. So I didn't want to go through all the effort of trying to make the absolute perfect hide volume for all of my hexes, and so I decided to go back to the drawing board. So I tried to find a solution. Maybe there's a better shape than hexes we could use. And as I was making my, very, very simplified hex, I noticed that, well, what was to stop me from just pulling in the edges? It should theoretically still tessellate well there. And, well, I rediscovered the true hexagon, which was the square all along. But everybody knows that, well, a square doesn't tessellate the same as hexagons. However, I just, placed one square down and then another square and another square, since over here on the hexagons, if you look at them like from this angle, you can see that this hexagon, this hexagon, this hexagon, all flat edges. So we can replicate that behavior. And then if you pick any one hexagon, there's two above and two below. So in order to get that with the squares, we just boop, boop, boop. And there we go. We have hexagons that fit Talespire's more natural form of squares, but we still get all the great traversal capabilities that hexagons provide. So if we take our little dude over here, if he wants to go north, right, you've got 6 different ways you can go, and it still has the same math as using hexagons, but something much, much more simpler. So if we look over here at my boards, these were the hexagons I decided to use. So if my players are here and they decide to travel to this hexagon, well, me as a GM, I can just go into my editing tools and I have all these perfectly little fitted hide volumes, and since they're squares, no funky edges, no nothing. So if you're wanting to run a hex crawl in Talespire, I strongly suggest using squares. Now, of course, if you don't care about hiding the hexes, use the beautiful hexagons. They look great. It does pain me a little bit that I can't use them for what I want to do. But if you want to hex crawl and you want to hide them, squares are the way to go. A few little tips and tricks before I just wanted to throw in this video in case anybody was going to go the square hexagon route. Since you're using squares, all you need is that they need to be evenly numbered across the edges. So if we go into our tiles here, anything you use with a 2x2, you're going to have even no matter what. So a 2x2, a 4x4, I'm using 6x6. I thought that was the proper size for what I wanted to convey when it comes to detail and whatnot. But yeah, any even number, you're going to be good to go there. If you do decide to use an odd number, you're going to need to overlap the edges. So let's say I was using a 5x5 here. 1, 2, 3. Yep, 5x5. And I wanted to tessellate this. Well, there's no perfect middle for me to hit, so we have to overlap the edges. And yes, that does mean that that the side ones are going to be a little extra tricky. But as you can see here, it should still work out. And the cool thing too is that, whoops, I did that wrong. The cool thing too is that you probably should overlap these edges as well, just to make it the simplest. But since they're squares, you can technically elongate one edge, and I don't think that would cause any problems. But if you are going to use an odd number, it probably would be best practice to go ahead and just overlap, so that you know you're not going to get any funky business with your tessellation here. So I went ahead and just chose to do a 3x3. I thought it had a good balance between being small enough to traverse, yet allowing some extra detail. And I really liked these book textures. I'd highly recommend finding some sort of edge to help break out where the edge of your hex is, so that when you're making a big old map, you can count them. And I thought this bookshelf one did a nice job, especially on the grass. It completely covers it. I think it looks pretty good. Of course, on some other tiles, you're going to have a little bit of clipping here, but such is life. So hope you really enjoyed this video and that it can save somebody some time. Thank you for checking it out. And if you want some more details or more in-depth tutorial on making these types of hexes, make a comment down below. Or if you want some tutorial in converting your world into these types of hexes, check that out. Definitely check out Dottie's video on doing a hex crawl. I think that was super helpful and inspired me to do one for myself. So see ya.